Informative, educational, objective, inclusive, comprehensive. This is Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Progress Report. My name is Ivan Khanna. This is my lovely co-host Gleneva Hodge, and I'm going to say it here again. She's going to laugh, but this co-host thing, she is actually the one that runs this show. And she tells me to do something and I do it. Like any good man who does. You just do what you're told. But it's been a very active season 2 thus far.
Yeah.
We've had a number of key persons, a number of key initiatives that are rolling out. And we have with us today, in the person of the Deputy Governor of Anguilla, the Honorable Mr. Perrin Bradley, somebody who I've been wanting to get on this show for a while. He's made commitment to be here, but you know, in his capacity, he wears a lot of hats. He has a very demanding role, but he made the time. No, we didn't get it in for season 1, but we're here for season 2. Very early in the season, he committed. And, you know, if he didn't have travels and other commitments, we would have done this episode already. But he's here now, and we're going to get into the intricacies of being a deputy governor, your role as head of the public service, just who is Perrin Bradley. Because people need to understand like who you are, what you do. That's what Progress Report is about. Is an inside look. It's updates and conversation from the Government Information Service. Yes, but it gives persons an inside look into how government functions and what it is. Even with the youth parliament, and
yeah,
then
we spoke a little bit about you already.
Yeah,
on this show.
Yeah. You know, you were one of the first to reach out to the deputy governor in the youth parliament and brought so all this good stuff, how the factions work, the different branches, arms, everybody connected to one route. We're gonna get into that stuff today, and I think we're gonna have a really, really good conversation. What do you say, Gleneva?
I agree. So let's jump right in.
Mr.
Bradley, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Progress Report. And as Ivan said, we really want to get into what is the role of the deputy governor.
Mm-hmm.
The entirety of that role, because I know that there are several functions that the deputy governor plays. So, do we want to start as head of the public service? Do we want to start as your role sitting in the House of Assembly? It's up to you. Let's go.
You're stealing all the good stuff. Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here. So thank you for the invitation, Ivan and Glebo. It's always good to see you, so thank you very much. You guys are friends, so you're going to go easy on me today.
Of course.
But I'm very happy to be here. More than willing to share my experiences and job so far.
Right.
I think it's the best job in the world. I've been having a wonderful time in the role.
Nice.
It's just been a great phase in my career.
Okay.
But going back to your point, there's several core functions of the deputy governor, and of course, chief among them being deputy to the governor, and then that's a delegated responsibility down from the governor. The key one is being the head of the public service. I also sit in Parliament. I also sit in Executive Council, and I have a direct relationship for, again, a delegated function, being head of the Office of Disaster Management, the Department of Disaster Management.
Okay.
And also special responsibility for the audit function, along with the permanent secretary for finance. So those are the broad areas that if you were to do a job description or what you're responsible for, those are the key areas. But for each and every one of those, for instance, the public services, a whole other animal by itself.
Yeah.
Parliament, So for each and every one of them, you can go all the way down to the minutiae of it all. Yeah. So those are the core functions of deputy governor.
I counted like 5 different jobs.
That's what I wanted.
Each one is a substantive position in and of itself.
Yeah.
So the last time I used this phrase, there was another Bradley in the hot seat, if you want to call it that, in the person of Miss Hyacinth Bradley.
I know who she is.
You know who she is?
Yeah.
I don't know if you met her, but she's an amazing lady.
I think so too.
Between me and you, she has a cape. She's actually Superwoman. I'm trying to figure out where she hides it because she does so many things. She's taken the nickname The Bridge that was coined on this show.
Right.
She's just connecting all sorts of things. And I'm sitting here and I'm hearing you and I'm seeing a lot of
Mr. and Mrs. Bridge.
Mr. and Mrs. Bridge. In all honesty, because you went through some very key functions and areas just now, and like all of them are extremely important. So if I may, let's start with the delegated role of the deputy governor. When the governor is off island, you act
Right.
as governor. How has that been? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, yes, but what does that feel like in the function of you got to make these decisions?
Well, I think to me, discharging the responsibility as well has a lot to do with your relationship with your key stakeholders. You know,
Okay.
of course, obviously, you're acting in a delegated function, a responsibility delegated from the governor. So therefore, when you act in that capacity,
Yeah.
there's got to be a proper understanding of number one, the issues that are likely to arise, or you know what arise, so
Okay.
forth, and have a conversation about how those issues are to be dealt with. So it's not that you're going to be confronted with something so phenomenal you can't handle.
Right.
And then when those things do occur, of course, you try not to bother the governor when she's away, so to speak. However, you do have to understand that there are some issues that requires some form of discussion about how they are to be handled. And so
Of
forth.
course.
And also in terms of the people who provide you advice and support when you're in this job, the permanent secretaries, the Attorney General, Commissioner of Police, and so forth, having that relationship with them. So when you are confronted with a challenge, you do arrive at the right decision, no matter how people may feel about it, but at least the decision is based on sound advice from those persons who are responsible for giving you the support necessary. So in that regard, you come into the job understanding that is part of the responsibility, and you carry that weight of that responsibility, knowing that you have a good team of people around you who will offer you the support and advice that you need. So for me, that makes it a lot easier. So there's no intimidation, or there's no new feeling, so to speak.
Right.
It's just the nature of the work.
Right.
You know, you do it the best of your ability.
If I may, before Gleneva takes this over, because this is her show, I've said it on several shows, and I think it's helping people to understand because we're getting the feedback now. Government in its entirety, including all levels of the hierarchy, all factions, judicial, everybody nowhere operates
When you
in
say
silo.
factions, what do you mean?
So when I say factions, I ain't necessarily mean factions like how we know. So I would say, all right, the department heads, the PSs, the 11 that's elected, the deputy governor, the AG
Right.
that are ex officio members, the governor, everyone, no one operates in silo where Anguilla is concerned. And I think for a long time people had that impression. They feel like, the deputy governor, if he's making a decision because he's the deputy governor. And you just said, even in acting as the governor, who persons might see it as like the head, and you have people that you can rely on, people that, you know, when it comes to making a decision, you draw on these resources. And I think for a long time, and I'm not being facetious, I think for a long time, some people just think that when persons sit, like the decision stops and ends with that person that they see, and that's not the case.
Well, I think ultimately the ultimate responsibility does rest with the person in the office. But the point I want to get across more than anything else is that you don't arrive at these decisions lightly. You
Right.
know, it comes with a certain level of consultation and awareness of what the situation is before you decide. So
Right.
it's not just like you're king of the castle, so to speak. You know, you're
That's-
just reporting in. No, it definitely doesn't work like that. I think it would be, you would be a very unwise person to approach a responsibility such as just thinking that you know everything and you don't need advice, and you could just simply act based on your own feelings, you know, because you just want to do whatever you want to do. It just does not work that way.
DG, and I am not reducing that capacity. I just think in general that's how
Yeah.
we need to operate. You like Gleneva and we host this show together, right? But no decision is made before I go and I say, all right, I'm gonna approach this person to see if they can come on the show. Okay, Glenn, what's the schedule? Because, like I said, she
Right.
runs the show, and she knows the conversation that needs to be happening and such. There's always some room for consultation, and I think, person across the island think that government does not have room for that stuff only happens in the private sector, and there's a lot of consultation, there's a lot of talking. I've learned that recently, because sometimes when things are taking time, they have to pass the appropriate channels, they have to pass the appropriate touch points. People need to weigh in because decisions are long lasting.
Right, and also if you go all the way back to what you refer to as factions, I prefer the term branches, different branches of government, Parliament, the executive, and the judicial. So they each have a role to play, and they all are supposed to have a check and balance on each other so that none is superior to the other, right? And I think in that process, that's how the business of government gets done. It's, like I said, it's building those relationships, understanding how those checks and balances are supposed to work. So it's so things take a certain amount of time for a reason. It takes so long to boil an egg. It takes so long to get certain things through the system. I'm not saying that in some instances things could not be done a bit faster, but you're right. There are stages and checks and balances as things have to go through in terms of discharging your public functions.
Right, definitely. Aniva?
Great. So heavy. let's take with maybe lighten it a little bit. What would you say has been, because you speak about all of these functions that the deputy governor is expected to perform, which would be your most challenging?
Hands down, head of the public service. Hands down, I would have to say that. That's the because I took office in summer of 2016, and you're new to the job, you're feeling your way around, you're building up your confidence and so forth, and then the following summer we had the monster of Irma. Right, so leading the public service through that time was quite a challenge because you got people from public servants who would have probably suffered some damage, not themselves personally, but their vehicles, their homes, from Irma coming into offices that are busted up and in disrepair, and you still expect those folks to smile, be motivated, and deliver flawless service. That was a bit of a challenge during that period. You think things are settling down, and we have the Angular program where, again, we're expecting the public service, along with the strong support of the UK government and some consultants, to deliver, I would have to say, 50 years of infrastructure development between the schools, the hospitals, the clinics, the different buildings, basically to deliver 50 years all within a 3-year time period. And you got that going on, and then wham, you get hit with a pandemic. You have to, so it's so trying to lead and manage through those circumstances has been quite a bit of a challenge. But I'm very proud of the way the public service has risen to those challenges, and the fact that I think we've come out of it very strong. Irma, we built back better. All credit to the guys over there in Michael for the work that they would have done and delivering those projects and so forth. Can't discount the support from the governor's office as well. My colleagues, Darren and so forth, those guys did a heck of a job in terms of the Angular program. Similarly with the head team during the pandemic, to get us to where we are now, I think we're poised for some great success. And no matter how people twist and turn it, you have to give the public service some credit for where Anguilla is now as far as responding to those two major challenges. And I'm very proud to say that I'm the head of the public service during that time. I think my colleagues did some exceptional work during that time. Really did. I'm very proud of the work of the public service.
I would say this, and it's just my thinking and my conviction. The Bible puts it this way: every step of a righteous man is ordered. The Scientologists would put it another way. Those that speak about manifestation will put it another way. But they all come back to your faith. So 2016, when you're applying for this job, because he had to apply, he just went handpicked. Right. You had to, let's get out there. There was a process. And he had to do it twice. The second time when he was hired again, he had to apply. Not because he was there, he just isn't passed on. You have to go through a process.
Yes.
So there was a testing. And in that testing, when I say testing, he didn't have to do a physical written test or anything like that. But there was a testing because you had to prepare. You had to show the requisite competencies, professionalism, everything that would be a check item. You had to show that. But the way I see life, and I don't know who else sees it like this in this room, you went through all of that not knowing that you were designated or designed to be in that position because of what was coming. That's life. Mm-hmm. I say all that to say this now. We are on, hopefully, the tail side of COVID. You've had natural disasters. You've had pandemics, never seen before, right?
Yeah.
You've had economic crisis to deal with. And you said something that I hope resonates with folks listening to the show. You thank the public service for how they carried the country through those things. But the public service carried the country economically as well. When you're on the inside now, and I'm technically a special assistant to the Ministry of Finance, Public Relations Officer, that's the title. But you hear, you speak, you can trace where the public service carried this economy for a while. During the shutdown, they were the ones going to work, collecting their salaries, paying bills in multiple homes, feeding multiple homes. It was a global shutdown, so to speak.
And there were those who were doing it officially,
Uh-huh.
and then there were those who were doing it unofficially. Because I mean, people, you know of people in need,
Yes.
and you may quietly offer some assistance once in a while. There's nothing to talk about. And
Right.
so forth. It shouldn't be, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying that a lot of that happened as well.
Yes.
So you know that XYZ is helping his brother who's working in a hotel, but there are other quiet ways in which the public service would have assisted many persons during that time.
Of course, and we don't have to get into that, but what I'm saying is the emotions of that now. I kind of get a little offended when persons forget that the public service is made up of human beings as well. That would have had to deal with all this stuff. The pressures you were under, they had the same pressures and sometimes more, because they still, like you said, had to show up and smile. And how did they stay motivated? How did you help to impact them staying motivated, showing up and doing their job? Is it natural motivation? What is it? Because I am proud of our public service.
I was just gonna say, I think we probably got, not probably, I know you have a well-trained, highly qualified public service, and they get it. They understand their roles and responsibilities as it is to, quote unquote, looking after Anguilla, you know, whether it's in the health, education, whatever the case, and they take your responsibilities seriously. And the fact that we've been faced by multiple crises during that period, I think for them, it elevated their sense of responsibility even more.
Right.
That the fact that I've got to be, I'm teaching kids who may be coming out of busted up homes and so forth. It made, I think, you know, especially the ones who had to care for us, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, and so forth.
A level of humanity.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
never seen,
That this is beyond just me being a public servant. This is me being a human being,
Right.
and showing that empathy and kindness to the people who I have to look after. Because ultimately, no matter how you twist it and turn it, those same, I mean, if you want to get really down to it, those taxpayers are the ones who are paying us.
Yes.
You see, so we have to recognize that as well. But I think beyond just the whole idea of being paid and, you know, getting your salary once it's not, I think the public service, they genuinely have a sense of care and duty to the persons in Angola, and they discharge their duties with that in mind. So to me, the motivation comes from this situation, the fact that the country has been hit by the worst natural disaster ever, in my estimation. I've been to Lewis.
Yeah.
You guys are too young to remember Lewis.
See, I find that age is coming up quite often.
That was a cheap shot. That really was a cheap shot.
I know.
But you know, being through those experiences, and then you're in this role now, you kind of realize that, whoa, this is not a time to be slouching. You know, I mean, you got to, because, you know, and for me, on a personal side, my daughter was 2 years old at the time. Our house took some damage and so forth. My official rig was completely destroyed. Myself and Governor Varro working some very long hours, and then you come home in the evening, you're tired, You know, there's no electricity, there's no running water.
Yeah.
And then you got a 2-year-old kid who's screaming blood and murder
Yeah.
because she picked up trash right after the hurricane. So that
wow.
was, yes, it was very uncomfortable. Because with all the water and the mess, and she's a
Yeah.
sucker finger at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just a mess, you know. And so you got a long day, and then
Nice.
you're trying to do your part as a husband and a father, and then you got a screaming baby. So it was quite difficult, you know. And I credit my colleagues for giving me the kind of support that I needed. And I think a lot of that happened around the public service. So when you talk about motivation, I think that was part of it as well. People looked up to each other.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of, on that note, and Ivan, you spoke about, you know, we had natural disasters in Alma, you had the pandemic
Right.
with COVID. And you spoke a little bit about the financial and economic situation with GST. And
Oh, GST.
yes, and I want to get into that. We're going to get into GST again a little bit later,
Sure.
but I want to get into it in the terms of, there were a lot of presentations, some public presentations that were made in saying that GST would not be necessary if you were to trim the public service.
Mm-hmm.
As head of the public service, how do you feel about those conversations that feel like as if the public service is too heavy and that the country cannot support the weight, so to speak, of the size of the public service?
I've heard those comments before. I think it's very much premature to just simply say the public service needs to be, you know, this size or that size and so forth. I think it's got to be a reflection of the services that are demanded by a person. So it's not as simple as saying that public service is too big. On what is that based on?
Right.
You know, how did you come to that conclusion? Because if you talk to certain people, they'll tell you that they don't have enough resources in certain areas. So perhaps I'm not saying that there's no scope for some more efficiency gains that can be had through digitization or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that those options are not possible. But what I can say is that the process of filling vacancies is quite robust. There's a wide discussion amongst the permanent secretaries, you know, the Ministry of Finance, the HR Department, Public Admin, to kind of work out, do we really need to fill this vacancy? Is there anything that can be done to redo this function, discontinue it, and so forth? So it's a very robust conversation about filling these vacancies and so forth. And if you look at the numbers for the budget, we have been holding strain. Exactly. The numbers for public emoluments have been coming in on the budget consistently. So we've arrested, as far as I'm concerned, we've actually arrested the growth of the public service, so we know it doesn't mushroom unnecessarily.
Exactly.
You know,
So-
vacancies still get filled. However, there's a robust process in doing that.
And to add to that, something that I learned recently, there have been positions on the budget to be filled for years.
Exactly.
And they just have not been filled. And I personally feel, who feels it knows it. I'm not in the kitchen, but I can tell you, for instance, budget period is coming up right now. And I've seen budget period in finance last year just being, they work extremely hard. And you have sometimes two budget officers. You have the PS, you have the PS finance, but they have their consistent roles that they have to play, and now they have to put together a 300-page budget, taking into account the medium term, the MTEF.
Because remember,
there's so much things to take into account.
about almost 40 departments and units and so forth. And each one of them are designed to do a particular function. They require resources to deliver these functions and so forth. So that exercise again is pretty thorough and robust about, you know, for whether it's customs or immigration or planning. You know, what do you plan to deliver in this particular fiscal period? What resources are going to be required for you to do that? And that's a very and then when it comes on the executive council level, now, it's quite intense. We put those folks through some serious scrutiny as far as like you especially for proposals for new spending.
Yeah.
You know, why in the world should we give you $100,000 to fund this proposal? You know, how are we going to benefit from this? So folks are put to some serious scrutiny. So we
You
don't
don't just come in and you say, "Oh, we got cash."
No,
Throw
it
some
doesn't work
dollars.
that. Doesn't work that way.
Ivan, I'm glad we're having this conversation because Ivan usually says, look into the camera and
But
say
I'm
what
coming
you
to
want.
that. I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that.
So we-
like
so we
literally, that's the
understand.
money bag right there. If you need some money, you look at it and you say what you want. Man, that's just my positivity. We're creative beings.
Yeah.
You have to put it out there for it to start to manifest. That's what I'm thinking. Because I firmly believe, like, I think Anguilla is on a great trajectory. Not just now, but part of our history. I can go as far back as coming out of 1967 revolution. When I think about it in this context,
Yeah.
I have no choice but to look at us rising as a nation. We're growing. We produce some of the best doctors. They might not be coming home, but they're abroad. We produce,
we have some at home.
and we have some at home. We produce top economics, top chefs. You're seeing per capita. The things that we have been able to accomplish as a people per capita, whether we be on the Anguilla flag, whether our passport is blue, but we went to school here, grew up here, that initial training, that becoming who you are is in the Valley School Pipewater. I just usually try to plug Valley School. I know you went to school, but it's
It's
Not gonna even know that.
two comments. Two things to say in response to that. Number one, I'm with you 110%. I think we've got to adopt an attitude of hopefulness. Given what we've been through,
Yes.
you got to be hopeful. You know,
Of course.
so when I see things like the additional flights coming in,
right.
and things that happen in the hospitality sector and so forth, it gives me hope that people believe in Anguilla. They want to invest in Anguilla. They want to invest in Anguilla.
Right.
They want to come here. They want to do business and so forth. We have to be hopeful about the future. You know, I'm just. And then the second point, you sung a lot like former Governor Tim Farr used to say. He used to be amazed at, for a country this size, 15,000 people, the varied skill sets, the
Yes.
multiple talents and so forth, the background and qualifications. It's for such a small place. It's more diverse than you would expect.
Yeah.
You know, and I think us in England should be very proud of a lot of the things you mentioned just now. You know, pilots and chefs and all sorts of skills,
All sorts of
doctors
skills,
and
yes.
lawyers and so forth. Whether they come back here or not, but we've produced them.
Produced them,
They
yeah.
were nurtured here.
Yes.
You know, and I think we should be proud as Angolans that we've been able to punch way above our weight.
That is true. So let me ask you one question. Looking at the public service, so I don't know if it was your case growing up, Geneva, because you're extremely young. But you had three choices when you were coming up my age. You're either going to work in the bank, you're going after college, or you're going to join the public service. What has been done to position the public service as the employer of choice?
It's a very, very, very good question. As far as I'm concerned, the public service is the employer of choice. As far as
He just put everything else on there.
always has been, you know what I mean? And I can only reflect on my own journey in the public service, and the
Okay.
opportunities that I've had and so forth.
Yeah, tell us how you came through the public service. Where did you start? You've reached to the top now. There's
Well,
Yes.
you know, I have to give our credit to my mom, actually,
Okay.
for chasing me out of the house because I was working in Barclays. I had a girlfriend,
Oh wow.
I had a license and a car.
Oh, so you're
So I was
balling.
done. That was it. There was nothing else in life after that.
I was drinking some water. You
What else?
almost caused an
What
accident.
else was
Pinnacle,
there? What else was there?
you've made it.
Yeah, that was it.
A car, Barclays. You
Yeah.
see, I told you there were three choices.
That was it. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, I
You had a right.
I riffed it, not a right. But you get my point. Though.
I love it, yes.
Yeah. I thought I was set.
Yeah.
You know, and that was it. That was the extent of my ambition, to be quite honest. You know, and I think my mom saw that I was getting comfortable and just had no interest in anything else. And she was pretty adamant that this is not going to work.
Oh.
Not under my house. You know,
That sounds like her.
You know, and you will get yourself started. Because at the time, all of my, a lot of close friends were drifting off and going off to university and so forth. And that caused my mom to even redouble her effort to say, you know, and you know how parents like to compare you to your friends. But in this case, it worked.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Ivan and Gleneva don't behave like this. They don't. You know what I mean? You know, and then it makes you feel, you know, you get compared to your peers and it worked and so forth. And I think I got it together and so forth. Unfortunately for me, we were in a different economic climate back in the late 90s, you know, than we are now.
Yeah.
And I was able to get a scholarship to go off to university. And that changed my life. That was the break that I caught that really changed me completely. And one year when I had to go to collect the tuition check and go to the boss at the school to pay my tuition, when I saw the figure on the check, I was like, whoa, you know, a whole country
Banking on you.
yeah, putting some serious money behind you, and you cannot afford to mess this up. And from then till now, that moment I was like, you know what? The people of Angola have invested in me, and I have a responsibility to give back.
Right.
So from that moment on, I just knew that my career was going to be in the public service. I had no consideration of doing anything else.
That's
I mean, at that
actually
point,
commendable.
yeah. I mean, prior to that, though, the way my ambitions were set out to where I am now,
Yeah.
totally different. I couldn't. You talk about faith in people's steps being harder. There's no way
Yeah.
I could have planned and laid it out the way it ended up.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. So I think from then to now, I just knew that I had a responsibility to be outside of being committed by a bond. I just think personally, you know, if we put that kind of money into somebody to train them once, that they have a responsibility to give back and make a contribution. And I think I'm well on my way to doing that. My legacy is not over yet, but I think the time I put in the public service, the things I've worked on.
Yeah.
You know, early in my career, I spent a lot of time on financial services and so forth. I think we did really well in terms of our OECD commitments, FATCA, all these different things that I would have been leading on. I did a stint in trade and investment, and I did a lot of cool things with my colleagues in economic development at the time. You know, people like Chantel Gomes, that crew. That was a really good time in my career because I think we worked on a lot of cool and interesting things. For instance, like when I go down to Zema Beach in particular, Zema Beach in Four Seasons, I could remember the proposal landing on my desk and reading about it and so forth, and organizing the meetings and trying to get it from and somebody's interested in doing something to MOU to what you see now. So when I go down to Zema Beach, I look at it and say, boy, I remember when we had our first meeting and this was just on a piece of paper. You want to buy this property, do this, do that, to come go down there though, to see it up as a going concern with people walking around, with tourists, and you know, so that type of thing fills me with a sense of pride, and that is why you do what you do.
Right,
You know?
and I think that permeates through a lot of the persons in the public service.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just not my experience.
Yeah.
That's not my experience only. But one thing I wanted to touch on, I would have mentioned as part of my response, was disaster management. Now that we're in the peak hurricane season, I would just like to remind your viewers to be prepared.
Yeah.
Because we just had a close one with was it Fiona the other day?
Fiona, yeah.
Exactly. We won Tropical Storm and watch and so forth. At any moment, those things can turn. And I just want to advise and encourage persons to make sure that they have their own personal preparedness plans in place, so that when you get that call or when that bell is rung to say, hey, within 5 days, XYZ is the case, that you've already started your own internal countdown to prepare and so forth.
Man, to be entirely honest, I be checking the weather every day. When I get up in the morning, after a little hail up to Jaja, I swiping on windy and I go in all the way down 10-15 days, seeing what coming off the coast, because I have multiple concerns. A major one, I don't know if you had to deal with this with your daughter, but I think if Angola's getting a hurricane, I need to ship Erin out. Like, when a child covers their ears for the entire ordeal, that's a level of anxiety that's going to have to be dealt with counseling and stuff all the time. Like, even after that, she's, the Sky Bank up to rain, she's upset, And saying all that to say, there are folks behind of us that we're responsible for intimately and otherwise that are looking at all of us in this room. So in your capacity as head of the public service, in your capacity as a stalwart in financial services, in my capacity as just being the only Rasta man that everybody knows ain't going to call apart. That's a good one, right? I'm just saying, like, there are people behind of us that are looking. And I think from what you shared just now, it'll be a motivation. I think even in just sharing that story, the school leavers will say, wow, I have a civic responsibility, not because the cash was invested in me, but there was a teacher that said that I can do better. You know, I went to school and I studied. Let me give a year in this post, in this capacity, because it's just to give back. As a Rotarian, you know, you go 3 or 4 way tests, and you want to do it because it's true. It's be a benefit to all concerned. I think everybody should live with a bit of that because you do it. I mean, Gleneva often says, in this capacity, where Progress Report is concerned, it's not a political show. It's updates and conversations on the Government Information Service, because the government is not the elected 11 people. I gotta get my subject of agreement correct because I just get checked on that. It's not the 11. It's every single person in the public service, not just the directors, department heads, PSs. It's every single person. But above all else, the government is the people. So when we were at Blowing Point the other day, and you said it so eloquently, it resonated with me. When you said, this is our terminal. This is for Anguilla. This is for all Anguillians and those that love Anguilla. Yeah. And that's what I see the public service as guardians of all this. Because we can't get, I just tell my son, there's opportunity cost and everything. He wanted Nats today, but I gave him money to go to school.
He's friends with Disney.
Listen, he had $10 to go to school with. I didn't know you could buy for $10 in school, but he probably tried sweet up on the girls. And then he had that age now, so he ended up spending 4 or 6 or whatever the case may be. And then he's with me at lunch telling me like, oh, he wants Nats. I said, how much money did you spend today? Oh, he had to buy a Capri Sun. He bought some candy, but I saw him walking 3 girls to class. Come from class. I done chatty business now. So I know that he pocket was a little light. All of a sudden he's coming back to daddy. You know, like he needs some money. And I'm like, no, there's opportunity cost.
Yeah.
What you willing to give up for what you want. And I think in the public service, and we have had conversations in the past, you know, about the sacrifices that are made and how appreciative we are of those sacrifices, you know.
Well, you touched on some of it just now, like again, the team that prepares the budget and so forth, the kind of hours that they put in to make sure, because the budget is a very detailed and a legalistic process, because when you go to Parliament, you pass that Appropriation Act, that is what legally gives the government authority to spend money on whatever needs to get spent, you know, so that is not an exercise to be taken lightly. So in terms of sacrifice, that is a classic example of some of those things. Our teachers, especially the ones who work with kids over, you know, after hours on weekends and so forth. So all around the public, so you can see people, you know, giving up more, going above and beyond in order to support the public.
And in a lot of instances, some of it is thankless. I know that will get you started.
You don't have to win up my sales, because not only is it thankless, I was actually going to just go and say a lot of it is heavily criticized. Because there's a huge difference between critiquing something and positive critiquing and heavy and sometimes unnecessary criticism. And you spoke a bit about Progress Report, and I'm gonna sound like beaten.
It's your record.
I did. Yeah, it's a stuck record, because you spoke a little bit about it in our previous episode with Keystone Graves, and looking at what a government information service and system looks like. As the head of the public service, what do you see to persons who are constantly being berated for the jobs that they do? A lot of times, and I'll just say this as frank as the, a lot of times it's on public airwaves where a lot of this heavy criticism comes in. And one of the things I've said to Ivan, and I'll say it, is that persons now have a space in which they can utilize to actually put out there what is actually happening. And I don't mean what is happening in terms of coming on here and speaking about a particular matter, but this is what my department does. This is how we serve the people. This is what we do. And how do you motivate people to take that opportunity and to sort of combat some of the negative connotations that are associated with.
And also very, very, you coming hard tonight, man. I appreciate the question. And I'll tell you why. Mrs. Bridge, a couple of years ago, and she was at the ministry. They launched this program called Community Desk, and the rationale for it was premised on exactly the same thing you guys are trying to do with Progress Report, which I think I commend you both for taking this on, because you're right. We've tried it, but not as fancy as you are now. But what it was, the point of it was to actually go out into the community after hours and bring different departments out, and whether it's a church or youth center, whatever the case may be. So tonight we're going to Natal, we'll be the Natal Church and Natal Basketball Court. We're going to have the immigration department there to kind of explain to you what the process is, belongership, permanent residency, passport applications, UK passport, Angular passport, British overseas, whatever, how the whole regime works. Customs, the same thing. We're going to go down to Ray Hill tonight. We're going to have the team from Customs. This is what's required to clear a package, and when you go to the post office, and this is what the process is. So we have been trying very hard over the years to actually get the word about what these departments do to combat a lot of that criticism and so forth. And I think what's happening here, the nature of the questions, the aims and objectives we're trying to achieve are things that I find to be quite commendable.
Yes.
So people can know without any kind of gimmicks or shenanigans or gotcha type of questions. This is what this department is set up to do. If you have any questions or comments and so forth about the work, this is how you can contact with us, because you're right. I find it very annoying that you have an issue. Again, we're not perfect in the public service. No. We have some work to do in some areas. That's so I got to sugarcoat that.
Right.
But what annoys me was when something does happen, rather than actually engage with the department and the individuals involved, the first thing people do is hop on Facebook, and then you see the statuses flying around and what's not.
Community journalism.
And when you actually speak to the persons involved and they explain to you what the situation was, and most times, I'm not saying that we were in the right. Of course, we've had officers say things and respond in a manner that would be very unpleasant or unpleasing to the taxpaying public. But a lot of the times, persons did not get an answer that they wanted or expected, and are castigating us for actually doing our jobs, applying laws or policies in a consistent manner. And the only way you can combat that is you're go to the community and explain this is what the procedure is, this is what the process is. This person, the reason why you can't. The thing is, you can't respond in kind. All you can say is that if an individual presents under these set of circumstances, they are not entitled to a particular benefit, which is why somebody, quote unquote, who would have been in this situation, that is why they got the response they did from a particular department. Not that somebody's being mean or being difficult. Or if you want something, if you want to access a particular service, you need to come with X, Y, and Z, not A, B, and J. X, Y, Z. This is what's required. You know what I mean? So if don't say why you can't take this because whatever. You got my data bought on this. Why you can't take it? No.
X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. These forms you see are all prescribed in law. These are added as regulations. So therefore, the law requires you to present X, Y, Z.
And I think you need to say that again just before you get it. I think you need to say that again. People don't understand. And let me break it down. You can tell me if I break it down correct. You walk into Inland Revenue Department. They told you needed to fill out these 3 forms to get a particular.
No, again, we could spend time talking about the processing. I believe in some instances we could do a lot better in terms of how our processes operate. I will accept that comes in, or even me accessing some of these services. But why, But then you understand. But at the same time, with that understanding, should also come the next step, which is look, we have to find a better way.
Right. See, I agree.
Because there's always room, and I was gonna ask that earlier. Room for reform, and changing certain things. But I wanted to get back to. You can't have that discussion if the public isn't aware of what they are expected to do beforehand. So you end up with that frustration and that clash because you aren't putting that information. So someone is coming and just being confronted and it's like, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know. And a lot of times, I said this to you recently, there was a situation and I'm like, I have no idea where to begin this process. And if you don't put that information out there, people are just running around like headless chickens. But the question I had was more, do you think that a culture exists within the public service of not wanting to speak? And how do we break that, if it does?
I think maybe in the past, but I think the new generation of public servants are quite comfortable, speaking publicly on matters referring to their department. I think what has turned a lot of us off about being in these settings is the gotcha journalism. I would point. You talk to public servants about it. Nobody wants to get dragged into us. Yeah, you have to. Like myself, ask me anything. I am a public figure. I'm expected to be able to explain my action and decisions in my role.
Yes.
Same thing. But I think for other public servants, maybe more junior, for them, the specter of being dragged into some sort of political awkwardness, is not cute. If you want to talk about a particular department and the work that they do, then let's talk about that.
Right,
but if it means you're going to come in a very specific scenario, my cousin come with a pass over, that type of, that is the kind of thing that puts people off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It ties back to our previous, the thing about this show is that it's pre-recorded. So we're speaking about the previous episode, but you, as we record this, don't have knowledge of. But, Mr. Keith Stonegraves spoke heavily about media and journalism and what that looks like. The responsibility of that.
I remember a couple of years ago I
dabbled.
No, not dabbled. It's like I had confronted a particular radio personality, and in a very non-elegant way, I did say he was quite irresponsible.
Okay.
Right. I just find it odd that you would go on radio, you would make certain statements yourself, or your guests would make certain statements and spot them as facts, and there is no challenge, no pushback. There is no reaching out to the other side to understand what
You have not heard Mr. Keith Stonegraves' interview.
Yeah.
And you have just quoted him.
Okay.
Verbatim.
Yes.
I'm not joking.
I just find it odd, and I've been in that situation more than a few times you've been in this job, and again, you can't respond
Verbatim.
tit for tat on these things.
Yeah.
But, I think that's part of the reason why you might get. And you can't force people to do these things, quite frankly. But I think that is that's why folks are reluctant to be in certain settings and so forth.
If I'm being honest, when it started, we got some pushback, and then by the end of the season, persons were calling and asking when can I come on to the show. So they understand that this is the environment for
that community desk. Again, this to me, this is a cousin to the community desk.
I remember.
I like
I remember. I remember the community desk initiative. And
But I think our challenge was that we would do it, but sometimes the
turnout.
would be less than ideas. But hopefully this forum is one that people can look at it whenever they feel comfortable and so forth and that type of thing. And the only thing is missing is actual interaction.
Yeah.
So you can ask questions.
So we actually get questions. So when in previous episodes we said we're gonna have the deputy governor send us your questions. Person meet us all the time. So
sometimes the questions are stored up just waiting.
Just waiting till the person
I'll say to Ivan, I'd really like if we can have X, Y, and Z on, because I've had a number of questions from the public, because people go, it's funny, I get it now.
You get it now.
They go, you're the one that's on Progress Report, you're the one that's on that show.
You're a local celebrity now.
I don't like it. I'm still not comfortable with it. But I do appreciate persons feeling comfortable enough to say, when are you going to have so and so on? Because I want to know. And I go, you want to know this? And I keep a note of what it is that the public wants to hear. Because at the end of the day, Ivan, like you say, government is about the people. And the people, and I'm going to just say, I'm outside. I am on the outside. I'm not a employee of the government of Anguilla. I am outside of the public service. And so my perspective has always been, as someone on the outside, I don't always necessarily know and understand what is happening. I've had the opportunity, the privilege. I live with my dad as someone who was a career employee of the public service in the government of Anguilla. And a lot of times I would complain about things and he would say to me, you don't understand how government works. Government doesn't work that way. And we would go at it. And I'd push back, and just like you're saying, that sometimes there are processes that, but I was able to gain a greater appreciation for the systems of government and the way that certain processes work because of that. But I know that not everybody has that privilege. And so through this medium, I hope to be able to present that to the general public so that they do understand. And even persons, I'll tell you, I've spoken to persons within the system as well that don't necessarily understand. So having this forum to be able to bring that is something that I remain passionate about.
By the way, your dad is somebody I hold in very high esteem during my career. Early on, and even now, has always had what to say. He doesn't pull any punches, very direct and so forth, and which I very much appreciate. I just have one bone to pick with him, so when you get home tonight, please remind him that he was supposed to take me fishing, and he ain't yet. I promise, he said when he retired, he was going to get a boat, he was going to go fishing.
Which retirement? The first one or the second one? Because I didn't feel like he retired yet.
He was going to go fishing. I tell him, I'm still waiting for my fishing trip.
I can tell him. Because now is off season, so you gotta catch him now. Cause come
15th October,
you ain't catching him again. So.
So I digress.
Not a problem. That's what we do here. But we have checking our time, just about a few minutes left, and I wanted to get to another aspect of your role, and this one is one of those we've spoken about this. The role of the Deputy Governor in Parliament. We know that the Deputy Governor sits in Parliament, and thanks to the GST legislation, we know...
What you talking about, Willis?
That's fine. I mean, I'm open to the question. I mean, it's a legitimate question. It was a vote that took about... If that's what you're going I should be able to explain it. I have no problem doing that.
Right, but we know that because of that legislation, the Deputy Governor voted, and a lot of people beforehand did not realize that the Deputy Governor and the AG had a vote in Parliament.
No, our Constitution provides for that we are full members of Parliament and Executive Council. Now, before anything progresses to Parliament, it has to go through Executive Council. It's chaired by the Governor. The Governor is not a member. Constitution, the Governor chairs it, but it's not a member. It's made up of the 5 ministers and myself and the Attorney General. So therefore, before anything progresses to Parliament, it has to go through Executive Council. But the principles of collective responsibility, which we are all bound by, and if you read the Guide to Executive Council Operations, it lays it out what your obligations are as a member of the Executive Council. So whatever wranglings we may have within the Executive Council chamber about a particular matter, when a decision is made, you are expected to support it publicly and privately. So therefore, once a matter has been duly considered by Executive Council and approved by Executive Council, again, you don't have to get into who supported it in there, whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is we are all bound by that principle of collective responsibility. So therefore, once that decision is made in Executive Council, that this is the direction of travel, or this is the decision that has been made, when it comes to Parliament, then you're expected to mirror, to support whatever that initiative is. It doesn't have to be a vote in Parliament. It just has to be a decision that the government has taken. You can't be in Executive Council and then do otherwise in a different forum. And that is the cleanest, the simplest explanation I can give for why I voted the way I did in Parliament. And that's just the nature of how our government apparatus works.
They're tough decisions, and I often pointed out because when I came into this role, the PAS sat me down and she showed me that.
Not only that too, but the records on
Yes.
the executive council are public records and so forth. So you can see the trail of decisions
Yes.
regarding GST and exemptions. It's all there.
It's all there.
Exactly. So there's nothing of the series of decisions that were made. Again, I think it's distasteful because again, confidential is another part of it as well. We don't need to get into what wrangling would have gone on as would we come to these some of these decisions are very, very difficult and it can, as you would expect, you got different personalities, different backgrounds, different viewpoints around that table, and it gets heated at times. That's just the nature of it. But at the end of the day, we're all professionals, we're all colleagues, and we're all a class of people, so we know how to engage with it. So it doesn't have to be open warfare. People seem to think that in there could be a fight, but it's not. It's actually people passionate about Anguilla and having sometimes different views on it. But at the end of the day, we all arrive at a decision and collectively we stick by it, and that's just the nature of it. I think the whole thing falls apart if those principles are not respected.
Of course. And my thing is, when you say fall apart, I think the whole thing fall apart in the social context when persons, and we touched on it earlier, are allowed to wrangle on and take certain views, and there's no repercussions for those things, because the airwaves, the media houses, they're so you can have your opinion. But when you take this opinion now and try to drive it into an action that is contrary or questions the integrity of the process, those are things that I have a problem with.
Well, two things I'll say to that. Number one, going back to a point you made earlier in the discussion about being hopeful. I am convinced, I know for a fact, that we have a very discerning public. Anguillans ain't foolish people.
No.
They can pick sense from nonsense. We're not foolish people.
We like entertainment, but we...
Exactly. So at the end of the day, they can pick sense from nonsense and so forth. So we can get on the radio and say what it is like. I'm not saying it should be encouraged, or whatever the case may be, and at the end of the day, people have freedom of speech.
Right.
Although I wish they would be a lot more responsible
I was going to
with
ask you
some of
about
the
that.
commentary. I just feel that I believe in my heart of hearts that at the end of the day, the discerning Angolan will pick sense from nonsense and know when somebody is talking a bunch of nonsense. So that's the way I feel. And secondly, we've been talking about constitutional reform for quite a while, right? And I think I'm not representing the views of the UK government when I say this, but I'm saying, again, public pronouncements and so forth from the very beginning, that this is your constitution, and whatever you want it to look like, you go ahead and we'll go from there. We're open to whatever considerations you have. Have your consultations, so forth. Decide. It's more about you than anything else, and so forth. And I think so that's another part of it too. That there are avenues and vehicles to address concerns. You don't like the fact that the Attorney General and the Deputy Governor have a vote in Parliament. No problem. Next one, the constitutional talks. Address it.
But
It's simple.
It's funny that you say that, because when that happened, that's the call that I got. She said, when Eva said, Ivan, this is the stuff, paraphrasing that I grind my gears. She said, because when those consultations was going on, the same 4 or 5 people were there.
Yeah.
This thing passed, went through, and nobody ain't know the ramifications of it, but then they come behave like the same.
Honestly speaking, one thing I'm very fortunate to have is that the people around me, my friends, my family and so forth, a lot of them, they had what to say about it.
Yeah.
Some understood, some didn't. Some were upset, some weren't. But the fact of the matter is, we could still talk and engage. That it don't have to come to be a discontentious, awkward way. And I wish that when we do have these differences, whether it's political or policy, whatever the case may be, that we can still trash them out in a sensible way. Just talk and have a conversation about it and so forth. And I find that, and then within that conversation, most of the people I've spoken to about it may not necessarily agree, but they understood.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I get what the process is, what the structure is. Now I understand what the situation is. Now I can clearly see, okay, I get it. I get it completely now. I still think you were wrong, but I understand.
And that's funny.
I could deal with
Yes.
that. I could deal with that. I could deal with that.
I think you've both touched on, and Ivan, I forgot that I called you, but it sounds exactly like something that I repeated over and under. And we're not going to get into it because we will at some point have to get into constitution reform and those talks. But yes, in order to know and to appreciate and to understand, you must know what guides you. And our constitution guides us. And the constitution allowed for. And as you say, if we as Anguillians want that to change, we don't like it, we want that to change, then that has to be communicated. I'm gonna stop myself because I was gonna go on and state, because I've listened to those consultations and I've listened to the
don't
issues.
mind the clock, just carry on.
No, I'm watching my tongue, not the clock. But I've listened to the discussions and I've listened to the conversations. And it's unfortunate because those matters that people then realize, ooh, I don't necessarily quite like this. I don't necessarily quite like that. Non-elected persons have a vote, but those issues weren't allowed to be given ear during those constitutional consultations because we focused on some very narrow areas. And I will leave that at that while we count that clock down because...
I got one thing. I got one thing I gotta ask. This is just on the lighter side, and it came from a question that was recently asked in the youth conference. There's a National Youth Conference.
This was during straight up conversations.
This was during straight up conversations. I've probably my first, maybe second, maybe my first. So I'll back on it be my first because I remember. But it's on the concept. It's on the notion, it's on the premise, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, of national pride. Right? Okay. You went to road school, and in your time, you guys would have taken quite a few beatings from Valor Primary. So you might not have developed that level of pride. That level of pride there, but you went off to university, and you are a Howard University graduate.
Proud Howard.
That's it, a proud bison. I didn't have to say it was coming out. But when you spoke, I heard the proud Anguillian. How do we translate that? Like, looking back at what you went through, that you can say without a shadow of a doubt, a proud bison. How do we get that to translate into people saying, I'm a proud Anguillian?
Boy, again, it's another very good question, because we all come by that sense of pride and duty and responsibility through different paths. But I just want to go back to your jab about
listen, let me position myself so you know where I'll be.
No. It's one of them turning points in my life. You and I have talked about music all day one day. We didn't get to talk much about my and the personals, but I wanted to use that opportunity just to weave that in a little bit, because I like this stuff. But 1 year we did win primary school sports.
Okay.
I would have to say that was about 88, 89.
Yeah, somewhere around.
Yeah,
we one of those off years.
Yeah. I was still in primary school. I went to high school in 89, so let's say 88, 89. It could have been one of those years.
Somebody had a flu or something.
They won the last one in the world, they've been right since.
and as part of the celebration, a band came to play at the school. It had Channel Lloyd in it, Preston. He goes by Issa now.
Yeah.
Ian Connor.
Yes.
Ian Connor was a drummer. And I can't remember the other. I think the band was called the Black Virgins, or whatever the case with me. It was the first time I'd ever seen a live band perform, and from then to now, just giving me a fascination with concerts and live music and what's not. You know what I mean? So when you see me looking at Todd Wall and all this, that's my thing. That's where it came from. So yes, road school won sports at one point. So that's you know what I mean. So right. So what I'm saying is that there are. Going back to the Howard analogy, when you understand the footsteps you're walking in, the legacy of people who would have come through Howard before, starting in recent times, the current Vice President of the U.S., Kamala Harris, is a Howard graduate. So we can go on and on and on and on, right? My point is, once you understand the legacy and the footsteps of whose shoulders you're standing on and so forth, to me, you can't help proud to be a part of our legacy. And the same goes for us in Anguilla.
Right.
When you start out from people like Ronald Reps and so forth,
Yeah.
a lot of our stalwart educators and so forth, when Mr. Ray, as far as he was on, it's a living legend. His contributions to Anguilla are undeniable. So when you...
But you can't take your mama off that list, you know.
Well, you know...
Don't talk about any nepotism, I'm going to tell you.
I'm biased, and then she's a politician, so I don't want to get into that.
I understand that, but your mother have saved many of young men. Because when I could have been getting involved in all sort of things, I was going down to that little house opposite the Church of God of Prophets in South Hill on Saturdays with Kiel to go typing. And look, we ain't too bad right now. But I'm just saying, there are people that would have made those contributions in sacrificing their time. You understand? It wasn't about making a $40 or $30. It was about developing soft skills and convictions in young men and young women to allow them to grow into positive contributors to society. And I think that's what you're talking about when you talk about that legacy. Yeah. So how do we capture that within the public service so persons can start to display a bit more? Because there is there, but open pride. So say I'm a proud Anguilla, and I'm a proud member of the Anguilla Public Service. I'm a proud civil servant, like I'm a proud bison.
But that's I was going back to that's what I say that when you look at someone like the career, someone like Rodney Ray, their contributions in various spheres, and even now, with our last election and so forth, you know, to me, when you look at their contributions to Anguilla, and when you understand where Anguilla was right around the issues that sparked the revolution, and where Anguilla was right after, just where we are now, and the fact that these sacrifices, you know, people like Ronald Repster and you know, Reverend Carty, all those folks would have made some serious sacrifices because they believe in Anguilla. So when you understand that what the level of sacrifice that were made in order for us to have these kind of opportunities and so forth, to me, you can't help but be filled with a sense of pride that, wow, he was from Anguilla. He did these different things. Well, then I definitely can do that too, you know. So I think a lot of us in the public service too need to and I've spoken about this before, need to kind of reflect on those who came before and the fact that they even if they had opportunities to go abroad and do different things, they decided to stay here and use their time and their talent to build this country up. So to me, reflect on those legacies of those stalwart people in the public service who went before us and so forth, you know. And to me, once you spend some time and understand what your role is in terms of moving Anguilla forward, to me, you can't help be filled with a sense of pride.
Amazing.
And on that note, I know when we started, you were like, an hour? That's long? Everyone that sits in the seat, there's no one that's ever gone
no one
an hour.
that's even said.
I want to apologize to our radio stations that broadcast this.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for being very patient with us when we go over time. But these discussions are necessary. Yes. This has been an excellent conversation. I enjoyed it tremendously. I hope you, our listeners, have as well. Ivan?
That's it. I have nothing else to say except this has been another great conversation, another excellent episode of Progress Report. Stay connected. Remember, we are on NBR Grace FM. We are on Cool FM. We are on Upbeat Radio. We're on Radio Anguilla, the nation station. We're on Advent Radio. We are on KCN TV Channel 4, Digicel Cable Channel 6. And if you are in the diaspora, we are on all major streaming platforms. Search out the Progress Report podcast. You can have all the episodes there. Email us your questions, email us your suggestions of guests to public.relations@gov.ai. You can see the superstar Gleneva in the streets and just flag her down like Beyonce and get your point across. But we want to hear from you. We're doing this for you. I think an educated public and educated community will take this island to the next tier, the next level, and that's what this is about. So until next time, this has been another wonderful episode of
Progress Report.
All right.
Evan, thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And,
I did.
And whenever you're ready for me to come back, let me know, man. I'm
great.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful experience, and you know, the work you guys are doing is phenomenal, keeping the public informed. So, again, kudos to you.
Thank you.
For even doing as well. But thank you very much. I had a wonderful time. Happy to come back.
Thank you. You definitely back. That you heard it here, he'll be back. All right. Thank you guys for listening.